over the city, looking down on Washington, D.C., you'll see there are two main boulevards culminating in a pyramid. And just at the very top of the pyramid is a street cutting it off. And then within the triangle at the top, where the eye on the dollar bill is the Capitol. And the Capitol building sits there. It's a pyramid. Then it has the Cleopatra's Needle, which is a Washington monument. And the river, the long riverway, and the long waterway is called the River Styx, which is where Pharaoh went into heaven on the River Styx. It is all laid out in Masonic symbolism, and the five-pointed star, which is a pentagram, has always been used. Satan worship, satanic worship, the five-pointed pentagram. And if you take the arms off of a pentagram, you have a pentagon. And the United States Pentagon is sitting exactly due north, aiming due north at the North Star Thuban, which is drawing power, according to the ancient Egyptians, for the god of war.
Just take a road map of Washington, D.C. Let's take a look at it from the air, and you'll see what appears to be the goat of Mendez. And the goat of Mendez,
which is a symbol in Freemasonry. Right. It's a symbol. It's a demonic symbol within the Freemasonic.
You see the goat and the horns and the whole thing. The whole city is laid out like that. It's all over.
So what we're basically saying here is that there is nothing happening by chance.
So I just gathered some notes here. I wanted to take some notes and just go into this outline. I wanted to draw these outlines just to mimic that of what we see on the map of Washington, D.C. And the understanding is just based in the commemoration of the Masonic bent, the pagan gods, the Egyptian, so on and so forth. This is what they push. This is what they worship. Just as we understand when it comes to the beginning of the video, we have the Washington Monument representing the obelisk, aka the resurrection pillar of Osiris. We already know Osiris was resurrected into Horus or reincarnated into Horus, but it's just based in the mythologies going back to the people that were worshipped as such, that being Nimrod, Cush, so on and so forth. So you have the Washington Monument, you have the seat, you have the White House, which represents the seat of power, going into the pentagram. And when you look at like the Eastern stars, you look at that star, you see this pentagram representing the understanding of the seat or the house, or more so the body of Washington, D.C., that being the White House. The White House is like the body of Washington, D.C. And then you have the Pentagon, which goes into the war aspect, because these structures, some of these structures were built for war. It's based in the commemoration of the god of war, that being Mars. So all these things are purposeful. All these things are purposeful. You got the Capitol Dome here, which is for Isis, the sacred feminine in the womb. And we already understand that. That's pretty much, you know, what they push in regards to the Mary and Jesus bent. But that goes back to Isis. Mary is just Isis. When it comes to the understanding of the mythologies that people adhere to, when it comes to the birth of Christ and, you know, Mary being a virgin. Mary wasn't a virgin, you know. So it goes back to Isis. That's what it goes back to. And Isis, you know, they had sex. Isis had sex with Semiramis, had sex with Cush, and Isis is also known as, Semiramis is also known as Isis in other regions in ancient Egypt. So that understanding is just based in deifying the sun, aka Osiris, or the Sunson, Horus, Osiris. That's what it's based in. Really deifying Nimrod, because it goes back to Nimrod. So yeah, man, you have all these different structures, monuments, layouts, just to represent the Masonic bent. You know what I mean? So I just want to get more into it, especially just when it comes to these structures and how they represent what they represent. You see how you have this Masonic star, just when it comes to the outline in the heart of it, representing the pentagram. You see the pentagram in the heart of the Masonic star, as well as to make up, you know, the background. So it's just something that we understand in regards to these things that mimic one another, or these things that inspire one another, or inspire something based off of the Masonic bent, based off of the Luciferian bent, so on and so forth. So, you know, just as we saw with the White House representing the Pentagon, the heart of the Masonic star. And excuse me, I meant to say pentagram, not pentagon. The Pentagon and the pentagram, they're alike. They're almost alike and similar. So Sometimes you get it confused, but just when it comes to the understanding of the commemoration, the structure was built for the god of war known as Mars. So when we see this structure here that's in Arlington, Virginia, which is the headquarters for the Department of Defense, the DOD, representing the god of war, because they move off of wartime. We already know that Esau, he moves off destruction and deception. So war is big. War is big when it comes to, United States of America and all these different countries. Washington, D.C. is like the head of that, just when it comes to the war aspect and the political aspects, on and so forth. How did the Pentagon get its name? Well, that's a no-brainer. But how did the Department of Defense giant headquarters get its shape? That's a larger story. The building was originally designed to fit into a tract of land with borders on the 5 sides. In the end, it was built elsewhere at a site where a pentagonal shape was no longer essential. See, when it comes to that legend that's laid out on my little layout, you see that the Pentagon represents the god of war. And also you see that the pentagram represents, the heart of the Masonic star. And then you see where you have the, I think it's the Jefferson Memorial, the Jefferson Monument, that pretty much goes into the Masonic square and compass when you trace it and you pretty much like connect it with the Capitol dome. So all this stuff is just Masonic in nature, and this is just the world we live in. It's pervasive when it comes to that aspect of it. In the end, it was built elsewhere at a site where a pentagonal shape was no longer essential. But by the time of this location change, it was too late to come up with a new design, so it remained a pentagon. Yeah, that's what they want you to believe. They knew that that's what the intentions were. It was basically on accident that was born out of wartime energy or emergency. Yes, because it's based in the god of war. That's what it's based in. Steve Vogel, a Washington Post reporter and author of The Pentagon, A History, Random House, 2007, told Live Science. So I wanted to update the map just in regards to the layout, the Masonic, Egyptian, esoteric, similarities or mimicry, just when it comes to how it's laid out. So we understand that just when it comes to the Jefferson Memorial, it's the Jefferson Memorial, not Jefferson Monument. The Jefferson Memorial connected with the Capitol, going into the understanding of Isis' womb, right? Isis' wombs, and then it's the compass and square depiction, or compass and square conveyance, if you will. And this is how we understand that we live in a Masonic world. We live in a Luciferian world. This is part of how we understand it. We already understand that this is the world we live in, but it's becoming more glaring just in regards to the culture of it. Going back to ancient Babylon, going into the worship of Satan or Lucifer or anything that's contrary to the Heavenly Father. We've gone over this multiple times. This is just so we can maintain the understanding of what we're subjected to, or what we're against, per se. I don't want to say against, because it's just, yeah, I guess you can say against, because at the end of the day, it will come to calamity. It will come to great strife. There will be, great cataclysm in this world. So, but at the end of the day, it's more about just having an understanding before the great storm comes. We just have to have that understanding. That way we put on that spiritual armor. Right. But as you can see here, the seat of power representing the White House. And with these legends here, I just wanted, it to be labeled so we can make sure we know what we're looking at in regards to the understanding. Obviously, we have the Pentagon here that's on the right, on the lower right corner, on the bottom there, representing Mars, the god of war. And then we also have the understanding of Osiris, who is the sun, reincarnation or resurrection, just going into the understanding of the mythologies, right? And with this, we understand what it's supposed to signify, what it's supposed to represent. So there's more to it just when it comes to these other cities and how it's laid out. But I just wanted to go into Washington, D.C. just because of what we saw in the beginning of the video, as well as, the understanding of Washington, D.C. and what we think of when we think about Washington, D.C. So, it's one of like the heads of this country, just when it comes to United States of America. Washington, D.C. is like the hub of the United States. Other than New York City, it's Washington, D.C., it's New York City. And I guess you can say like Philadelphia or something like that. Just because of the Masonic lodges and, Benjamin Franklin, so on and so forth. So I wanted to make this layout with the goat of Mendez or goat of Mendes, aka the Baphomet, because this is something that we learned in the beginning of the video in regards to how these things are laid out. And I'm sure most of you brothers already knew this, but just when it comes to the understanding, we already know the goat. They worship the goat heavily in this society. So the goat motif is going to be, for the most part, in a lot of places that you wouldn't think, just in regards to what we see with the layout, or like certain ways that, certain stadiums may be constructed, or performance, on stage or what have you. They construct these things to signify what it represents, going back to the esoteric, going back to ancient Egypt. So in this case, we have the demonic element of the Baphomet, in which I wanted to label this out. I wanted to trace this just so we can get a better understanding of the layered layout, right? So you see the facial features just when it comes to the placement of the Baphomet, and the third eye right there, that little dot right there representing the third eye of the White House. That's the center, that's the pillar. So midway down each diagonal line between the horns and the head, you see the eyes. You see the eyes on the left and you see the eyes on the right. And then the third eye, that's the White House, that's the center. And then the ears, that aligns with the pentagram side points, left and right. You see the side points with the pentagram representing the White House. And then the beard, that aligns with the lowest point of the pentagram. And that's going into the understanding just based off of how it's laid out. Because you see the house, we have that little point where it's almost like mimicking that of a capstone on a pyramid or something like that. So you have this layout that's esoteric, and it's esoteric in nature. And just as I said, when it comes to the legend, it's very important for us to, just go off of how it's laid out when it comes to the legend. So we have the street pentagram, we have the Pentagon, and we have the understanding of the Capitol going into the White House, with the Washington Monument laying out as the axis of Isis, right? Isis axis, or Osiris's axis, just going into that understanding. Pierre Peter Charles L'Enfant was a French-American artist, professor, and military engineer. So this is the person that pretty much came up with the plan to design Washington, D.C. the way we see it. In 1791, L'Enfant designed the Baroque style plan for the development of Washington, D.C. After it was designated to become the capital of the United States following its relocation from Philadelphia. See, this is why I always talk about how you have these states that pretty much are like the hubs of, America, or cities that are the hub of America. Cities like Philadelphia, or cities like, Washington, D.C., even though it's more like a state, but we already understand. Pennsylvania, the state of Philadelphia. So, we have these different regions that pretty much give you a clear understanding of the framework of the United States of America, just based off of the lodges that were in place in Philadelphia, as well as the understanding of Washington, D.C. and what that makeups. And then New York City being a cultural hub, as well as, the entertainment, sex, so on and so forth. His work, known as the L'Enfant Plan, inspired plans for other major world capitals, including Brasilia, New Delhi, and Canberra. In the U.S., plans for the development of the three major cities, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Sacramento, were inspired from L'Enfant's plan for Washington, D.C. As you can see, this silhouette here, right? It's crazy because he died in Prince George's County, Maryland, and the resting place was in Arlington, Virginia. Arlington, Virginia, where we went over when it comes to the pentagram that's held there, in commemoration of the god of war, that being Mars. So all this stuff, it all happens based off of how they want it to happen.